And coming up next is our popular segment called Homes Today. Hostess popular herself, Miss Audrey Forshey. She is a Remax Realty realtor as well as an advisor. Alongside her, a senior loan officer by the name of Mr. Barry Filterman. The topic of discussion is going to be a little different, and it's called Different Conventional Loans. Let's take a close look.
Welcome viewers, thanks for coming back and tuning in today. Again, we have Barry Filterman from George Mason Mortgage to join us so we can talk about the different kinds of conventional loans that are out there for you to maybe look at in terms of your shopping for a mortgage when purchasing a home. There's a lot of information, and I thought that maybe we needed to break it up into a couple of sessions. So here we go. We'll get a little bit more specific about some conventional loans that are available for you today. So hi Barry, thanks for coming again.
Thank you for having me.
So Barry, what kind of conventional, there's conventional loans, but there's a whole menu of loans for people to look at when they're purchasing a property. So I know one size doesn't fit all, but let's talk about different kinds of loans that purchasers can get and what's out there for them.
Okay. Basically, you got two types of loans. One would be a fixed product and one would be an adjustable product. Fixed rates, of course, you can go from 30s to 25, 20, 15, and even 10-year loans if you want to do that.
Okay.
Adjustables are basically the same thing. You can have a 10-year adjustable, a 7-year adjustable, a 5-year adjustable, a 3-year adjustable, and a 1-year adjustable if you want to go that way.
Okay.
And it depends on the situation that the customer has that I would recommend an adjustable over a fixed rate.
Okay, so if I am purchasing a property and I think that I need an adjustable rate, what are the benefits if I'm going to have an adjustable rate? Why do I want an adjustable rate?
Okay, the first benefit would be that it would help you buy more home.
Okay.
So if you're a little bit short in qualifying, you could go to a 7-year or a 10-year to get a better rate, and then you would qualify off that rate rather than the 30-year fixed rate.
Okay.
I like to put people in adjustable rate mortgages is when they know they're not going to be there for any particular length of time. So if you know you're going to be gone in 5 years or 7 years, or even if you think you're going to stay 7 years, so you have a little insurance, you go with a 10-year and you're paying lower interest rate. Why pay the interest if you're not going to be there?
Okay, so if I'm gonna, let's say I'm a first-time home buyer and my first property is a townhouse, let's say, and I know that that's not gonna be my house that I live in for 30 years, and I expect to maybe live there for 5 to 7 years, then maybe it would benefit me to do a 5-year loan or a 7-year loan, like you said. So that means that my interest rate that I get on the first when I start,
yes,
that's going to be the same interest rate for 5 or 7 years, and
correct,
then on the anniversary of that loan, then it can start to adjust.
That's what we worry about, is
okay,
what happens after the
when
initial period's up.
Okay, yeah, so how do you determine what it's going to be, I mean, in 7 years, if I happen to end up staying in my house? What happens?
Well, this is where it comes down to is having an experienced agent and experienced loan officer, because most people are going to go off what we call a teaser rate.
Okay.
And a teaser rate is what that initial period of time is. A lot of times 3-year, 5-year adjustables will have something in the 2s.
Okay.
And it'll stay that way for 5 years. But the question is what happens after? You have to be aware of what the caps are.
Okay.
You have to be aware what the margins are.
Okay.
I want to get into that because it's important.
Okay.
A cap is basically how much up or down that loan could go in any given year after that initial period's up. So most adjustables are 5-year, they're 5-1 adjustables.
Okay.
A 5-1 means it's 5 years fixed, turns into a 1-year adjustable.
Okay.
You could have a 5-5
okay,
adjustable, which is fixed for 5 years, it adjusts, fixed for another 5 years.
Oh, okay.
So you want to make sure that you know what you're getting to. Now, some adjustables have caps of 1% a year.
Okay.
Some have 2% a year.
Okay.
And that means is once the initial period's up, the adjustable can go up 2% in any one given year, and some only 1%
okay,
in any given year. Some adjustables, and you got to be real careful about this, some adjustables after the initial rate could go up the maximum, which is called a lifetime cap. That's the worst it can be. It could go up the maximum, and then every year after that, it's to 2%. So you got to be real careful
So Barry, what determines what the rate will be when the arm adjusts, when it makes a change? How do we figure that out?
Well, this is, in my opinion, the most important part when you're shopping for an adjustable rate. The index and the margin determines what the rate will be.
Okay.
And the index is what index are you using to basically start.
Okay.
And that would be prime rate, 1-year Treasury security, LIBOR, and the old famous coffee. You remember that.
Do we know when we apply for the mortgage what the index is going to be based on, or is it random?
If your loan officer's good, they will explain to you what index, because it's very important.
Okay.
The LIBOR is my favorite because it's stable.
Okay.
It doesn't jump like a 1-year Treasury security might jump.
Okay.
It stays. If it goes up, it's going to go up steady, and if it comes down steady.
Okay.
So that's my favorite, and I think most of the adjustables right now are basically going off the LIBOR.
Okay.
Then you have your index, which is, I'm going to put it in generic terms. It's profit.
Right.
Okay, so you take whatever your Treasury security is, whatever your LIBOR is, and you add your margin.
Okay.
And whatever that equals is your interest rate.
Okay.
And what you don't want to do is you don't want to go over those caps we talked about before.
Okay.
So if the rates went up a lot, and when you take your LIBOR plus your margin, and it's more than that 2%, then the 2% cap protects you.
Okay.
That's why it's important to maybe get a cap that's only 1%. So
Okay.
it can't go up as much.
All right.
And the margin is so important, because sometimes the lower the start rate, the higher the margin.
So the margin is the number that the interest rate could end up at in a worst case scenario over the long haul.
That's the cap.
Oh, okay.
The margin is what they add, let's call it profit, what
Okay.
they add to the index to determine your rate,
Okay.
not to exceed the caps.
Okay.
So the lower your margin, the lower the rate will be.
Okay.
So sometimes it behooves the customer to go with a higher start rate and get that margin down than it would be to go with the teaser rate. And it also determines how long that person's going to stay in the property.
Okay.
So if he's not going to be there for 5-7 years, who cares?
Okay.
But if they are going to be there and they're using an ARM to buy more house, the margin and the index become very important.
Okay.
and they need to be explained.
Okay, all right. So we need to understand our caps and our margins in our adjustable rate mortgage. They're a great tool if you're trying to buy a little bit more house. Maybe you know your income's going to go up in the future and you can refinance it, right? If the
Yes.
rates are
Yes.
good. But I think people have been okay in ARMs right now because the rates have stayed low, but it is kind of a gamble to stay in an adjustable rate for the long haul. I definitely think it's not a long haul kind of a mortgage to have on your home.
No, it depends on the market, and this is just my opinion. Unless you need the adjustable to qualify for more home, and I want to get into the FHA adjustable, it's really better to get an adjustable when the rates are high. Once your fixed rates start getting to where it becomes unaffordable, the adjustable rate brings it back. And chances are, if the rates are high, in the next 7 years, you're going to get a period of time where the rates will drop that you can refinance out of it. If you're going with an adjustable now, odds are you're going to go up.
Okay.
After
Yeah,
the
'cause
initial
the rates
period,
are
because
so
the rates
low.
are so low.
Okay.
So you also want to look at yield curves, and a yield curve would be basically the difference between a short-term money and long-term money. Sometimes the adjustables have a much better interest rate than a fixed, and sometimes they're almost the same. So you don't want to go with an adjustable when they're almost the same.
Yeah, and you
Sometimes you have what's called an inverted yield curve, where long-term money is actually cheaper than short-term money. So your fixed rates are actually less than an adjustable. The FHA adjustable, in my opinion, you qualify at the start rate, so your interest rates are lower, but right now they're almost the same as the fixed. But when they're not, having that 1% cap, starting at 2 3/4 or 3 for 5 years, and it can't get worse than 4 and then 5. When you start taking an average, a lot of times a 7-year average is going to, worst case, be less than what your fixed rate is at the time. And if you're not going to be there, a good loan officer will recommend that as an option. And some people just get scared of them and just want a fixed rate. So that's fine too.
And can you do an ARM, can you do an adjustable rate mortgage with a 5% down or a 10% down, or do you have to do 20% down for an adjustable rate?
Well, some adjustable rates will do 5%, like for instance, FHA ARM, you can do 3.5.
Okay.
Some require 10% and some require 20.
Okay.
So it depends on the program. So again, you don't want to be shopping around for a rate and then really like that program, but then you don't have enough down payment to qualify for it.
And I kind of feel like this is my personal opinion and what I think I would advise to my clients. I mean, again, it's how long you're going to stay in the property as to what kind of loan you would do. But I kind of think that the rates are so low, you don't want to risk an adjustable rate right now anyways. I mean, wouldn't you think that most adjustable rates would be fairly good for people that would be in a property for a while?
I'd say 90% of the people need a fixed rate loan. But when you have, especially in DC, where people, I think the average person stays in their house for 5 years.
Yeah.
And when you have people that are here for 3-4 years, for 5 years, and your fixed rates are 3 3/4, and your 5-year adjustables 2 3/4, why pay the extra interest if you don't have to?
That's true.
But you really need to know you're going to be here. And then again, if you need it to qualify for that house you love, you got to have that house, and you need the extra qualifications, then an adjustable would be a good way to go.
And so what happens if I have an adjustable rate mortgage, and just for argument's sake, let's just say your interest rate's at 4.5%, and I say I want to refinance out. I can refinance it, and then I'm just going to take a chance at whatever the interest rates are at the time I'm refinancing. So that's the thing I'm the most worried about, is what will happen at the end of the term. I mean, I can refinance any time before that too, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you have an adjustable that started in the 3s and right now your fixed rates are in the 3s and you just had it for a year or two, I'd still consider getting out of it and refinancing it.
All right.
If you have an adjustable that is that's 4% and the interest rates are higher than that, you might want to wait. But you got to be careful that period of time, and that's the gamble, is that are you pulling the trigger to refinance at the right time? And you can't second guess yourself. You do what's best for you at the time, and don't second guess yourself.
And so are the guidelines, we talked about Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac before, are they Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac guidelines for the most part, as long as they're under the conforming? And
well, that's a good question. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac ARM products are Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac guidelines, but your better price programs are going to be the jumbo.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and you got to be careful with that too, because you might want the interest rate to be low because you're only going to be there for a certain period of time, and that's great. But if you're doing it to qualify, a lot of adjustables qualify at the first year adjustment. They're not going to qualify at that start rate.
Oh.
So you got to be careful with that too.
Okay.
So it depends on the customer, it depends on credit scores, it depends on down payment, it depends on so many different things. That's why you need to go to a professional, get yourself pre-qualified so you know what you're doing.
Remember when we were new or younger in this business, and I can remember when like an FHA ARM or an ARM of any kind was like 7%, and we thought that was the greatest thing,
Yeah.
didn't we?
Well, the first adjustable that came out was 9 7/8. It had no caps, and everyone jumped all over it because fixed rates were 13, 14, 15%. And they've come along, and they've got different protections for the customers now.
And so do we still have those loans that are called the buy downs? Just to touch on that real quick. I mean, we don't have much time, but is that the same thing as an ARM? Remember we used to do those
Yes,
loans?
and we still do them. I used to love doing the adjustables because it basically gave you that start rate, but now they're not qualifying at the start rate. But if you want your payment lower, what it does is it starts you out low like an adjustable, but it's only going to adjust for 2 years.
And you know what it's going to be.
And you know it's going to be. It's going to be 3.5, 4.5, no worse than 5.5, and that's what it's going to stay for the remainder. They're called temporary buy downs.
Okay.
And a lot of times when your life cap on an adjustable is 7 and you're starting at 3.5, doing a buy down will get you that start rate that you need, and then it'll stop after a couple years.
So that gives you a little bit more control over what your payments are going to be. And again, I think for some people it might be that, I know I'm going to make this much money this year or for the next couple years, and I know what my interest rate will be, and I'm probably going to get a promotion. So maybe that might be a product for our viewers out there.
Well, there's so many other issues too. It's like people that have children that are under 5, they have daycare. That's going to go away in a couple years.
Oh, that's true.
So you have all these things that a good loan officer will ask. They'll determine the basic budget of that customer, and it might make sense to do the adjustable, and it might not. That's why they have so many products, because some make sense for some and some don't for others. And more importantly, a lot of people aren't comfortable with adjustables.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for all the great information. I love talking about different kinds of loans because it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of world anymore. So thank you again to Barry Filderman from George Mason Mortgage for joining us today. Thank you.